the record, I did not enjoy it. I want that stated clearly at the top of this incident summary. Physician liaison Darveth's clinical annotations have a way of making the whole thing sound like I found the experience pleasant. I did not. A ruptured secondary abdominal sheath, which is what the hull stress event gave me when I hit the bulkhead strut at approximately 40 kilometers per hour of lateral differential, is not pleasant. I am aware of what it felt like. I was there. What I am less able to account for is what the monitoring record shows I did while it was feeling that way. My name is Kale Soveth. I am a certified field engineer, Class 4 structural certification, 18 years in deep transit infrastructure work. I have filed this debrief at the request of Korathi Transit Medical Authority as a mandatory condition of my continued work permit aboard Korathi licensed vessels. I have no objection to filing it. I have some objection to the tone of physician liaison Veth's annotations, which I feel suggest a degree of alarm disproportionate to the outcome, given that the outcome was fine. Here is what happened. The freighter Soveth reached departed Davith stations 11 days into its transit run when a pressure coupling in the forward cargo segment, specifically coupling array 7, which I'd flagged in my pre-departure inspection report as showing stress fracture markers consistent with a manufacturer's tolerance defect, failed in a manner consistent with what I had described it would do if left unaddressed. The failure propagated a lateral pressure wave through the adjacent corridor. I was in that corridor. The bulkhead strut and I reached a mutual understanding about the limits of human tissue at speed, and I lost that argument. I remember the impact. I remember the deck plating. I remember physician liaison Veth arriving approximately 4 minutes later, which I know because I had checked the time when I heard his approach corridor seal behind him. His first statement, delivered in what I would characterize as clinical alarm, was that the readings on his portable monitor were inconsistent with a conscious patient. I told him the readings were fine. He told me, with some firmness, that his portable monitor disagreed. Told him his portable monitor was calibrated for Korathi physiology, which peaks pain response signaling at a threshold approximately 40% below what a human body generates under routine injury conditions, and that the readings were probably making the display do something unusual. He confirmed that the display was, in his words, showing a bar graph that had extended beyond the labeled range. I told him that was the range the instrument wasn't designed to show, not the range that was dangerous. He sedated me anyway. I understand why. I want the record to reflect that I understand why, and that I have no professional complaint about it. His instrument showed a pain index that, by the standards of every species Korathi Transit Medical Authority routinely serves, responds to late-stage incapacitation and the onset of systemic shutdown. By the standard of those species, conscious patient at that reading is not merely uncomfortable. A conscious patient at that reading is, according to his own subsequent report, clinically unprecedented. The sedative he administered, standard Korathi broad-spectrum analgesic, dosage scaled to what he had on file for human mass, was in his words a compassionate intervention. I was sedated at hour 0 of the monitoring record. At hour 0 plus 17 minutes, I was apparently awake, not partially awake, not agitated or confused awake. According to the monitoring log, I had located my field tablet, which had slid approximately 2 meters down the corridor during the pressure event, retrieved it, returned to my position against the bulkhead, and opened the maintenance reporting interface. My handwriting recognition input, logged automatically, shows the beginning of a formal discrepancy report on coupling array 7, filed under the transit vessel's maintenance protocol. I was aware at the time that this might look unusual. What I was not aware of at the time was what my pain index was reading on physician liaison Veth's remote monitor. He has since shown me, at hour 0 plus 17 minutes, when I was beginning that discrepancy report, the index had not decreased from its initial reading. It had increased. The sedative had not, as far as the monitoring instruments were concerned, done anything to the pain. What it had apparently done was put me to sleep for 17 minutes, after which I had woken up and decided to file paperwork. The discrepancy report on coupling array 7 was completed at hour 0 plus 41 minutes. It runs to 6 pages. I have been told it is thorough. At hour 0 plus 53 minutes, I submitted a secondary report on a pressure irregularity in the deck 4 ventilation routing that I had noticed, while writing the first report, corresponded to a pattern I had seen in a similar coupling failure on a different vessel class 8 years prior. I had not mentioned this irregularity in my pre-departure inspection because it had not yet reached a threshold I considered actionable. My assessment, incorporated into the secondary report, was that it would reach that threshold within the next 40 hours of transit, and that the appropriate intervention was to reduce transit speed by 12% and schedule a maintenance hold at the next authorized station. The Sovith Reach's engineering crew subsequently inspected that routing. They found the irregularity. They reduced transit speed. They have since, I am told, filed their own report commending the early identification of what they have characterized as a potentially significant secondary failure risk. At hour 1 plus 12 minutes, I asked physician Liaison Veth, via the corridor intercom, whether there was coffee available anywhere on the vessel. He has annotated this entry. His annotation reads, Patient's pain index at time of request, 94.7 Korathi equivalency units. For reference, the Korathi Medical Authority defines clinical death from pain response as initiating at 60 Korathi equivalency units in any cataloged patient population. Highest recorded surviving reading in any prior Korathi patient, 58.3. Request for coffee denied on grounds that oral intake was contraindicated pending surgical assessment. Patient acknowledged and returned to apparent work activity. He did not, I want to note, explain why oral intake was contraindicated. I would have appreciated the explanation. I found a sealed ration package in my kit instead. It was not coffee. Between hour 1 and hour 6, during which time physician Liaison Veth had contacted Davith Station's Medical Relay Authority, consulted with 2 remote specialists, and, by his own account, drafted and discarded 4 different incident classification forms because none of the existing categories fit. I completed a full inspection variance review of the transit manifest against the stress load documented during the pressure event, identified 3 cargo containers with load shifting inconsistent with their filed weight declarations, and began a formal query to the shipper of record. My cognitive assessment scores, which the monitoring system runs passively on any patient in medical observation via the ambient sensor array, between hour 0 and hour 6. Not by a large margin, but they improved. Physician Liaison Veth's final clinical note, appended to the incident record and shared with me in accordance with Korathi's Medical Authority's patient transparency protocols, reads in full. This patient's physiological pain response during the observation window represented a sustained index incompatible with consciousness, cognition, or voluntary motor function in any species for which this authority maintains clinical data. The patient remained conscious, cognitively functional, productively occupied throughout. The sedative administered at hour 0 produced 17 minutes of sleep. No other effect is documented. The patient's output during this window: 2 completed technical reports, 1 manifest variance review, 1 shipper query, and an accurate early identification of a secondary failure risk, was reviewed by engineering staff and found to be correct in all particulars. I do not have a classification for this. I have flagged this record for review by the Korathi Medical Authority's Xenobiological Standards Office. I have also requested that the instrument manufacturer extend the pain index display range. He asked me, when he discharged me from observation after the surgical repair, whether I had been in significant discomfort during the monitoring period. I told him yes, it had been fairly uncomfortable. He looked at the discharge form for a moment, then he looked at me, then he wrote something in the notes field that I was not able to read from where I was sitting. I assume it was something clinical. The surgical repair took 4 hours. I was under general anesthesia for it, which I understand is standard practice and which I have no objection to. I was back on shift 11 hours after discharge. I have filed this debrief as requested. I maintain that the incident, while inconvenient, was manageable. I maintain that the monitoring record, while unusual in appearance, does not reflect anything other than ordinary professional practice under suboptimal conditions. Physician Liaison Veth, for his part, has apparently submitted a separate report to a body I had not previously heard of. He has not described its contents to me. He did. When I passed him in the corridor yesterday, pause and look at me for a moment, with the expression of a man reviewing something he does not know what to do with. I nodded. He nodded. I kept walking. There is, I think, a certain point at which asking questions about the answer you have been given stops being useful. I have reached that point. He has not.